So I pitched up at RAF Scampton, feeling a little bit out of place because I was the only what we call creamie. So the creamie is it's an Air Force word, which means you've been taken off the top, the cream off the top of the milk kind of thing. Anyway, it is what it is. So first tourist instructor, they're called creamies. So I went off to Scampton. I was the only creamie on my course. A friend of mine from officer training, he'd been creamed off from his course at Chivener. He was a course ahead of me at Scampton. So there were faces I knew around the place. Joined the course, and I'm surrounded by guys who are coming off the front line. These are very sharp people some have flown in Gulf War One. Some there were Harrier guys, ex-Buccaneer guys, Tornado guys, multi-engine guys as well, but all very, very qualified, very experienced. And I sort of went, crikey, this is a room to be in. And set to with instructor training. But it was a great leveler because none of them had instructed before. So whilst they got all the experience, we were all starting with something we'd never touched before. So we're all in the same boat, which was great, to be honest. I made some very good friends on that course. That was my introduction to Pink Floyd, thanks to a dear friend Billy Auckland, who's no longer with us, alas. But he got me into Pink Floyd. I was a bit late to the party, but I got there in the end. And little things like that. It was a great summer. And a great 6 months learning how to instruct. It really was good fun, to be honest. And back on the Tucano. So I'd only been off the Tucano effectively for about a year, so it came back quite readily. But you're doing a different job with it. It's not, I've got to jump through these training hoops. The syllabus defines a hoop, you jump through it, you move on. It defines a hoop, you jump through it, you move on. This was very much okay. Right, you are now the one who is going to define that hoop for your student. So it was a complete role reversal. But I really enjoyed it, to be honest. And I'm not going to lie, there was nothing about it that I went, oh dear, no, this really is a bad move. Moved up to Linton. I'd never been to Linton-on-Ouse before. My career had been Cranwell, then Valley. So Linton-on-Ouse was a new base for me. And it was near York, where I'd grown up. So it was back to the old stomping grounds, to be honest. And I loved it. I absolutely adored it. I was in the mess, not a million miles from the bar, which is obviously a bonus. It was in those days, different times. The feel of the place, I was sort of back with my age group as well. Bearing in mind, I'm still quite young at this point. I just turned 25. So a lot of the guys I was flying with were not that much younger than me. If they'd done a degree course, they're sort of 22, 23 perhaps by the time they've gone through officer training. So it was very much a good environment to be in, surrounded by fellow instructors from all backgrounds. So this is ex-fast jet guys, multi-engine and helicopter guys had all come to be Tucano instructors. So it was really good fun. I look back with fondness at not only my time at Linton-on-Ouse, but my time on the Tucano. I got my first sort of major hours milestone at that point. So I hit 1,000 hours total on the Tucano, and I celebrated that by being upside down on the second. And I kid you not, I'd worked it out, and we were on a navigational detachment down at Lynham. We'd take the students down to RAF Linton to run around low level in the southwest and South Wales and places like that, places they'd not been to before, and that's the idea. And I'd worked it out, and I said, I have control, and I just rolled upside down. And he said, what are you doing? I said, well, that's made 1,000 hours. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
So yeah, it's all part of the fun element, and so that was a sort of major milestone. And then I got my A2, which was my instructor upgrade. That came. I didn't pass my first one, which actually came as a bit of a shock. And at this point, I'd been rather quite successful all the way through training. I hadn't really had many problems. I can't recall actually failing a trip. I didn't fail a trip through basic or Valley or my instructor training. I didn't have to refly anything there. Obviously, you might not perform that well on a trip, but it never warranted right, we'll do that again, Matt. So it came as a huge shock when I went in for my instructor upgrade, and failed it dismally, if I'm brutally honest. And that came as a bit of a shock. So I sort of took myself aside, spoke to a lot of people, and they said, "Well, you've done the bookwork and all the rest." I said, "Oh, I messed it up on the air ride," and they were like, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah, my student. So this is the examiner behaving as a student. Couldn't do a stall turn, and I couldn't diagnose it. I literally couldn't tease it apart and put it back together again. To this day, it was like, what was I supposed to have done? I had a complete, nightmare in the back seat, in the vertical, going, how on earth do I sort this out? Oh my goodness! And then an element of panic sets in, and that was it. But 3 months later, I went back in and I got it the second time. But that was a bit of a wake up call, to be honest, and a bit of a shock to the system. But I walked away with an A2, and that was it. And then it was a case of, right, where am I going to go after my instructing? So it's back to the system at that point. So the system sent me back to Valley for a Hawk refresher, and it was a weapons refresher. So I literally got, if memory serves, it was a minimal amount of ground school. It was literally, right, you've done this before, mate. Here are the books. We'll give you a very, very short and succinct little ground school. And I think it was only about a week, if that, to be honest. You learn the checks again, you get in the simulator again, and then you're in the jet again. But it all came back because I've got 3 years of flying experience in addition now. So it all came flooding back, which was nice. My refresher went really well, and I walked out of it with a single seat recommendations.